Hi everybody, welcome back. We're looking today at Jeremy Duff, Elements of New Testament Greek. We have got to the end of chapter 11 and I just want to throw out a few exercises from the practice exercises at the end of the chapter. One of these, the first one, comes from a request in the comments. Thank you, Stephen, I think it is, for being very patient. It's months ago you left that comment and I haven't yet got around to this. But this will be coming out. Hopefully this will help you, and you also asked for a few others, so if I remember I'll go back and do them from chapter 10 as well. But let's get cracking with this. We're on page 132, this is number 6. So here goes. Lege un to apostolo, me ginu pantote tuflos entercardia su a pistos. Let me just read that again. Lege un to apostolo, me ginu pantote, that's a new and a tau, there we are. Pantote tuflos entercardia su a pistos. Let's just get started at the beginning. You'll notice a couple of things straight away. There's a capital letter here and a punctuation break at that point, which means that this is the start of direct speech. This is the first sentence, therefore. So, lege un to apostolo, post-positive conjunction, meaning therefore. And so we'll just throw that one in to the beginning. Lege to apostolo, very simple. He says, or he is saying, to apostolo, the person who is being spoken to in the dative, just like in English, he says to his friends, or to the apostle in this case. So therefore he says, could of course always be she says in general, to the apostle, comma, open the punctuation, open the quotation marks there for the start of the next clause. Me ginu pantote tuflos entercardia su ala pistos. Well, let's find the verb here. This is a bit longer than usual. We don't want to make a mess of this. And the verb is right over here, ginu. Now, this is from ginomai, meaning, excuse me, to become or to happen. But in some contexts, it means just something more like Amy, to be. And that's what's going on here. And the form of this, if you think of ginomai, we looked at it just in chapter 11. It's a slightly unusual deponent verb. It forms a second aorist. But because it's a deponent verb, it forms imperatives in the way that deponent verbs form imperatives. So ginu is the second person singular present imperative of ginomai, to be or to become. So me ginu, well, me is going to negate the verb. Notice that it's the form of the negation, the particle of negation that comes with verbs in the other moods. This is imperative, not indicative. So this means do not be, or perhaps become. You can see where that comes from. Okay, pantote tuflos entercardia su. Well, just thinking about the verb to begin with, we're looking for a complement in the nominative and not an object in the accusative. That's because ginomai behaves in that respect like Amy, in that it doesn't take an object in the way that many verbs take an object, but it takes a complement. And so tuflos is the complement, nominative case, notice, of ginomai. So do not become or be blind. Oops, dear, what am I doing there? Blind. Remember how to remember tuflos means blind, because tuflos sounds like toothless, and if you're blind, the tragedy of being blind, you can't find your way around, and so it will be very common in the ancient world for people who are blind to be injured in all kinds of other ways simply because of falling over, doing all kinds of other things, and so, not being funny, but toothless, tuflos. Okay, me ginu tuflos. Now what's pantote doing here? Well, pantote is an adverb, just means always, and it modifies ginu. So if you're putting this in English, you want to put it in the place that an adverb normally comes in English. So do not always be blind, or do not always become blind. That's probably where we want it. Back over here somewhere. Let's do that just to remind us. And again, I encourage you, as I've done before, when you're translating sentences like this, have some scrap paper, do this kind of working on it, and you'll get into the text more easily, and also you'll make fewer mistakes. Okay, entercardia su, well that's fairly easy. Prepositional phrase, in tercardia. What's cardia? Well, it's from cardia, without the I to subscript. Heart, as in cardiac arrest. So in the heart, su, the second person singular pronoun in the genitive. So in the heart of you. So in your heart. There we are. So do not always become, or do not always be blind in your heart. Ala pistos, or ala, easy, but pistos. What does pistos mean? Well, pistos means either faithful or believing. Believing in the sense of faithful as an adjective. Faithful seems to fit the context better here. But before we just conclude, let's wrap that up there. Just notice something about the structure of this sentence. I'll get another colour. How about a green? Ah, there we are. Notice what's happened with this word faithful. It's slotted into the a clause in the same place as to floss, but without the need to repeat the verb. So if we were doing this very clunkily in English, we might say, do not always be blind in your heart, but be faithful, or maybe even be faithful in your heart. But in Greek, as in English, we can be elegant, abbreviated, and the verb to be is, or become, is implied in here. And we do the same thing in English, don't we? If you read somebody, especially perhaps somebody writing 50 years ago who's writing elegantly, do not be always blind, do not always be blind in your heart, but faithful. So that's what that means here. Therefore, he or she says to the apostle, do not always be or become blind in your heart, but faithful. Pause 1 second, stick another one up, and we'll come and do some more practice. Okay, here's a second example. This is number 8 from the same section, section A, on page 132. Kyrie dikaia. That's why I chose this example, by the way, because I thought that'd throw a few people, and also because of the verbs that are coming up in the rest of the clause. Kai ho kosmos se uk egno, ego de se egnon, kai hutoi egnosan hotit su me apostelas. Okay, so the verbs coming up in the rest of the clause, you can see that this is one great big ginosko fest. Check this out. Egno, egnon, and egnosan. So we've got here several forms of ginosko in the aorist. Let's just remind ourselves of the form of that. We've got, it's back if you want to look at it, we're on page 128, verbs with unusual endings. And we've got egg, known, os, o, omen, ote, osan. Singular, plural, first, second, third, first, second, third person of the aorist indicative of ginosko, meaning I know. So that helps us just to navigate our way through this text, and using that perhaps you can just work it out for yourself when we get to it. But before we get there, Kyrie dikaia. And how many of you are looking at this and thinking, what? I've never seen that before, and probably you have never seen it before. Just take a look at this couple of words here at the beginning. Try and work out what it is. The clue is in this word, Kyrie, which is by far the most common word which you ever see in this particular grammatical form in the New Testament. Can you see what it is? It is actually a vocative noun, Kyrie. Kyrie. About 50% of the nouns in the vocative case in the New Testament are this noun, Lord. Remember that vocative is the case of address. We normally don't include it on the nominative, accusative, genitive, dative list just because it's so rare, and when it does occur, it's normally this one. So it doesn't seem any point in cluttering up the declensions that we're learning with an extra 25% of things to chant to ourselves. But in this case, it is worth spotting it. And of course, what happens when you want to modify a noun in the vocative with an adjective, you have to have an adjective in the vocative. So Kyrie comes from kurios, dikaia comes from dikaios. And so Kyrie dikaia means Lord righteous, or we would say in English, righteous Lord. So if you learn nothing else in this video today, you've been reminded of the vocative case. You don't really need to go back and learn anything. It's normally the same as the nominative, unless it's got the in the nominative, in the vocative singular. Okay, let's move on before we lose our minds over that one. Kai ho cosmos se uk egno, comma, well there's a clause, let's deal with that before we go any further. Here we've got something that looks like it's a subject, looks like an object because it's accusative. Where's the verb? Ah, here it is, egno. And egno, just looking down at our little written out conjugation of gnosko in the aorist, is the third person singular. So he, she or it does not know, because of uk, does not know. And of course that figures because ho cosmos is the subject. So the world not knew, did not know, is probably how we would say it in English. The world, oh dear, world, not word, apologies. World did not know. And there's the object, did not know you. Second person pronoun, su, se, su, soi, hu, mes, hu, mas, hu, mon, hu, min. Se is the accusative singular. So, ho cosmos se uk egno, the world did not know you. Stick a comma in there. What's that Kai doing? I'm going to write also at this point, simply because in general terms, if you see a Kai that doesn't really seem to make sense when it's translated as and, try also and see if it works. There's some reason to think here that it might actually not even mean that, but we'll come to that in a second. Okay, let's carry on. Ego de se egnon. And we've got another comma, another little clue, so let's just take that as a single clause with egnon, first person singular. I, emphasised, I know. Egnon, and the object again is se, you. So how are we going to translate this? Well, it's I know you. And let's get rid of this line there. And the pronoun ego, I, appears there for emphasis. Now you can see why that would be the case just by reading what we've got so far. Righteous Lord, the world did not know you. I knew. Dear oh dear. Aorist past tense. I knew you. And the de here is therefore almost certainly a contrastive post-positive but. Just because we're contrasting, the world did not know you, but I knew you, comma. Now, some arrows in here to make it clear where it's coming from. I'm wondering whether it's possible that the Kai sits here simply to form a contrast with de, or rather to set de up for providing this contrast. Part of the reason I think that is simply because Dr. Duff himself has not translated this as also, and certainly not as and, in his rendering of this at the back of the book. But I'm not sure I've seen that before, so that's a little bit of a puzzle to me. I think I'd probably end up saying it does seem to connote some sort of additive force in this context. So it would mean something like, Righteous Lord, the world also did not know you, but I knew you. And that would be confirmed if, in its context, there was something else that didn't know you, or somebody else who didn't know you. So they didn't know you, the world also didn't know you, but I knew you. That would make sense in its context if that's where it come from. Let's carry on. Get rid of some of these squiggly lines just to make things a bit neater. Kai hutoi egnosan hotis su me apistelas. Okay, and let's throw that in. Hutoi, from hutos, meaning these, as the subject of egnosan, and here you can see it's the third plural of the aorist of gnosko, and these, they knew. And again, this is really emphatic in force, but it's also indicating these people here are the subject of the verb, and you can see where this is coming from in Jesus' prayer to his Father in John's Gospel, and so it's Jesus is praying in the company of his disciples. And these knew And here's a feature of the verb gnosko that is also a feature of other verbs like lego, lege, can be followed by hote, meaning that, in the sense of the thing that was thought or the thing that was said. So hote can introduce direct speech in other contexts. Here it's introducing the thought that Jesus is the speaker, is referring to with egnosan. These people knew, put people in there, these people, or these ones, knew that su me apistelas. A couple of things to deal with here. Pronoun, that's the first thing to deal with, and then the verb here. Let's do the pronouns first. Su, nominative, singular, second person pronoun, is here emphatic. That you, as distinct from anybody else. Me, that's the object, that's easier to account for. Apostelas comes from, well, let's look at it because this is worth a bit of revision. Apostello. Apostello, meaning I send. But this is a liquid verb. Now you need to turn back a couple of pages or so to where are liquid verbs? Yeah, just one or two pages. Page 129, 130 to look at liquid verbs. Remember, liquid verbs are verbs the stems of which end in mu, nu, rho, or lambda, as in mineral, like mineral water. Liquid verbs, mineral water, remember? Okay, and those verbs cannot accommodate a sigma immediately after the stem for reasons of pronunciation. So whenever you want to form an aorist or a future of a liquid verb, you have to do it in some other way. So what's happened here is you've got the change of the stem and you've got the normal aorist ending there, the omicron at the end of the preposition at the start of the verb has elided in favour of the epsilon augment. So that's epsilon augment. The sigma suffix isn't there, but it's changed stem, so it is aorist. Apestelas means you sent. Second singular. Get rid of all that. You sent. So these ones, or these people, knew that you sent me. Now, again, the word order here looks somewhat tortured, but it is actually quite significant because Jesus' point here is, just going from the top, righteous Lord, the world did not know you, but I knew you. But I, ego, emphasise, knew you, as opposed to the world knowing you, which it didn't. And these knew that you sent me, that is to say, you as distinct from anybody else are the one who sent me. So you see how the word order particularly and the emphatic pronouns is used here to make subtle but important point of emphasis in the Greek text. Okay, righteous Lord, the world did not know you, but I knew you, and these people, these ones, knew that you sent me. One moment, and we'll come back and do another one. Okay, one more example right here. This is number 10. After this, he went down to Galilee, and Mary and his brothers and his disciples, and they remained there for not many days. A few quirks and curveballs here. You've got this, and Mary and his brothers and his disciples. How are you supposed to integrate that with everything? You've got a time expression here we're going to have to figure out. So let's get into it. After this, the way you express that is using the preposition for after, which is meta. Meta. Remember how to recall these prepositions. Meta. After breakfast I met a man with a big hat. After, with, after governing a noun in the accusative, with governing a noun in the genitive. So after this, it's going to be accusative. So this is going to be from hutos. So tuto, meta tuto. After this, meta tuto. He went down to Galilee. So he went down. The preferred translation here that Duff gives is katabino. Katabino. This was introduced on page 128. Slightly unusual verb, slightly unusual ending, and you've got the declension, the conjugation written there for you, page 128. In the aorist, kataben, katabes, kataber, katabemin, kataberte, kataber-san. And so we want he went down is going to be bear, kateber, third singular aorist indicative of katabino. He went down. And to Galilee, it's easy to imagine either using pros or ace for this. Duff has gone with ace, so let's stick with that. But pros, as far as I can make out, will be fine as well. To Galilee, and so Galilee is Galileia, and also we want 10 Galilean. We want it in the accusative, and it's a place name, so it ought to have properly. It ought to have the article. Very occasionally, you find these place names without articles when you think they should have them, but in general, stick them in, and you won't be wrong to do so. Meta tutor, kateber, ace, 10 Galilean. He went down to Galilee. Right, now here's the first puzzle. And Mary and his brothers and his disciples. Now, the puzzle here is, in English, this just seems to be floating around and not particularly closely attached to anything. So the question is, what is it attached to? Well, the answer is, it's attached to this verb, kataber. It's an addition to the subject of the verb. We know that because you read it in English and you think, and Mary and his brothers and his disciples were among those who were going down with him, whoever he is, and obviously it's Jesus. So what that means then, very simply, is all this lot needs to just go in the nominative case to indicate that it's the subject of the verb. So it's fairly easy. So, Kai, Maria, Kai, his brothers. Well, that's going to be the brothers of him. So, hoi, Adele, foi. My personal preference would be to put the possessive pronoun, the genitive form of the pronoun, in between in a sandwich form, but it could come here. Let's pop it in here though. Autu, the of him brothers and his disciples in a similar form. Kai, hoi, autu, the of him disciples. That's a slightly peculiar word. It's one of those nouns of confusing gender. Mathertes, it is masculine. Mathertes, but it's plural. So we want mather tai, nominative, masculine. I'm sorry about that. My camera just decided to stop working. I think I was in the process of saying mathertai, nominative, masculine, plural. So what we've got with this long phrase, and Mary and his brothers and his disciples, all wants to be in the nominative, or the relevant nouns. Kai he Maria, kai hoi autu adelphoi, kai hoi autu mathertai. Final clause then. And they remained there for not many days. A couple of curveballs in this clause. First, well, let's put kai in. Have that for nothing. They remained there. Well, remained is from our old friend from years and years ago, Meno, I remain. But a quick look at this will remind you that this is another liquid verb. That is, it's a verb with a mu, a nu, a rho, or a lambda at the end of its stem. So it can't tolerate a sigma here at the end of the stem when it wants to become future or aorist. So it has to do so in some other way. It does so by changing the stem. And that means that they remained. Well, I remain is emeina. So they remained, emeina, emenas, emeinan. They remained is going to be emeinan. There, eke, means there. And I believe that Duff has it in that part of the sentence, as in, and there they remained. And perhaps that is more normal when it comes to Greek word order, but we've seen enough examples of where word order has been tinkered with not to be too worried about that. Kai eke emenan, for not many days. Final curveball. What you've got to spot with this one, as I mentioned earlier, is it is a time expression. So we are not looking to find a preposition that means for. What we're looking for, no pun intended, is to remember how we express duration in Greek. And the answer is you simply put the time expression in the appropriate case, which if you're expressing duration is the accusative case. So all we want to do with this is to find a way of saying not many days, where all the nouns, adjectives and anything else that can be declined goes in the accusative. So let's start with the noun, start with the easy thing. Day is hemera, but we want days, plural, and we want accusative. So let's just go through the declension. Hemera, hemeran, hemeras, hemera, hemerai, hemeras. That means days, accusative, plural. Many is going to have to match it, also accusative, plural. So that's from polus, that's masculine though. We want pola, feminine, matching this. Pola, polan, polas, pola, polai, polas. No surprise, matching here. Polas. So polas hemeras means many days. We want not many days. And so now we've got a slightly unusual use of the negative particle to negate not the verb, emenan. If you wanted to negate the verb, you'd put it over here, uk emenan. But here it's negating many days. And so we pop it before this. My impression is that this is used far more often to negate verbs, but clearly it can be used, as you see here, to negate other parts of the sentence. And here it's being used to negate the time expression. And you can see, just in terms of conceptually, there's a difference between not remaining there many days and remaining there not many days. There's a subtle difference there. So, meta tuto kate be eisten Galilean, kai he Maria, kai hoi autu adelphoi, kai hoi autu mathetai, kai emenan eke, or kai eke emenan, u polas hemeras. That'll do you. Well done. Getting to the end of this lot. 3 examples from the end of chapter 11. We will move on in the next video to chapter 12, which actually I think is a little easier than chapter 11. And it certainly introduces some important concepts. There's some stuff to learn, but conceptually it's not that hard. So come back, join me in the next video. We'll start off at chapter 12. In the meantime, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. I promise it will pay huge dividends. And we'll have you reading the Greek New Testament in no time at all. God bless. Bye for now.